Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you especially for your practice, your determination, your study, and your support of these resources, starting with this channel with about 1,000 videos you can search on the channel. On the homepage, there's that little search area, not the top search, that's all of YouTube, but the search on that homepage for this channel, you can search by keyword like karma, or whatever it is you're looking for, or a specific dosho, and you'll get a result set so you don't have to sift through 1,000 videos to see what you're looking for. All right, and of course, threefoldlotus.com, free information there. The bookstore, the mandala store, very important. If I seem a little low energy today, I know I haven't posted a video in a couple of days. I've been going through some medical procedures, so I'm a little tired. Apologies if I'm dragging a little bit. Oddly foreboding maybe is this last chapter, or not the last, but maybe the penultimate chapter. I don't know. Part, yeah. Oh, it might be, no, appendix. So this is the last chapter. Chapter 11, the last stage of Nichiren's life and his death. All right. Let's just get into it, okay? The prophet had nearly reached, the Bodhisattva, had nearly reached the 61st year of his age. And for some time, his health had been impaired. He'd been through a rough life, yeah, as we know. So he's at Mount Minobu, this bucolic, beautiful place. His depth of feeling for life in all of its forms was at its nexus. We've read about that. He wrote poems about it. Quote, "Since I retired to this place, I have never been out of these mountains. During these 8 years, illness and age have brought me severe suffering, and both body and mind seem to be crumbling into ruin." I just so empathize. "Especially since last spring, my illness has progressed, and from autumn to winter, my weakness has increased day by day. During these 10 days, I have taken no food, and my suffering is aggravated by the severe cold in the midst of a huge snowfall. My body is like a piece of stone, and my chest is as cold as ice." End quote. Whew. The words are from a letter to a lady who had sent him rice and rice beer, thanking her for the comfort her drink had brought to him. Even a strong man of almost superhuman will, like Nichiren, was unable to resist the disease, which was doubtless the result of constant strife and suffering throughout 30 years of his life. His mind was perhaps preoccupied by his illness, and we have only 11 letters from the 10 months preceding his death. Yet some of these letters are still in a vigorous strain, and he dwells much on the ideas of his bodhisattva mission in contrast to the actual condition of the country. He was a bodhisattva to the last moment. A letter that he wrote to Lord Toki Jonin, is interesting as embodying Nichiren's thoughts on disease. Toki had written to the master about a plague that was raging in the country, and it seems had asked his opinion. In reply, Nichiren explained that there are 2 causes of plague, one bodily and the other mental. Now, I've talked about this on this channel. There's a lot of mysticism out there about Buddhism and health. But these are very grounded arguments. I spoke on addiction, and I got quite a reaction from doing that. But you have to understand with rational mind what Nichiren is saying here, or will say. I'm assuming he's going to quote him. Maybe not. I don't see an act. Oh, here we go. Yeah, maybe so. Okay. In reply, Nichiren explained that there were two causes of plague, one bodily, the other mental, which were reciprocally related. So that, see, body, mind, body, mind. Buddhism is about attitude and intent. The mind, and in samsara, vehicled, realized, experienced bodily. Just like Nichiren practiced this Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra bodily. But that doesn't mean without the mind. That means in a concerted effort of the mind utilizing this body and this body's emergent property that is what we call mind. The two are inseparable, right? Just like self and environment are inseparable. And produced by the malicious devils or those negative karmic realities who seize every opportunity to attack. The devils are, however, Nichiren says, nothing but the radical vices existing in each one of us from eternity. It's part of our karmic freight train of the whole universe, right? The universe doesn't have nice bucolic planets like the Earth without also having fiery balls of hydrogen, helium, etc. to warm it. Because both goods and ills are, according to Tendai's conception of existence, inherent in our own nature. We are the universe is us. The processes are the same. It's all a matter of degrees and quantity. Not only diseases, but all negative are only manifestations of the radical and innate vices, vices being earthly desires, and there will be no cure until these vices have been extirpated. Interesting word. Then the question is, why are the dedicated believers of the Lotus of Truth attacked by ills or devils? Oh, that's a common question, isn't it? I've been chanting so strongly, blah, blah, blah. I practiced for a year and a half now, and my whole world is just, I don't know which way to duck. Everything's going to hell. Why? You know how much I love that question. I mean the why, not the other part. We all deal with that. For the solution of this problem, Nichiren has recourse to the doctrine of, quote, mutual participation, or codependent origination, or anyway, it's known by many names. Just as the bliss of enlightenment in a particular individual is imperfect unless this bliss is shared by all fellow beings, the Bodhisattva way, so ills may attack even the holders of the truth, even the messenger of the Tathagata, so long as there exists any vice in the world in any of his fellow beings. Now, that's one of the toughest concepts, I think, that any student, any other Buddhist that I've met in my lifetime has struggled with. The idea that the war in Ukraine, the starvation and the abhorrent behaviors of what's happening to the Palestinians via Israel, or the Yemen population via the Arabs and the Muslims, all these religious battles just slaughtering people left and right in various different ways, and there are more. I don't want to list them all. They affect your life, my life, not just economically, not just in collection of goods, all our earthly desires, but our actual health, our karma, our energetic amalgams resonate with that energy being put into action, into life, into the world. You see? So when I say to you, when you practice intently, you radiate out into your environments. You and I tend to think in our local environments. Certainly, I will sway people's behavior at work or at school or in the supermarket or just my close circle of friends. I can witness their slow differences of behavior simply because I dedicate myself to my practice. But make no mistake, you are also affecting the suffering, the ills, the devils, all throughout humanity. If you can even begin to grasp that, then the statement that we and the universe are of the same, affecting the same, starts to become slightly more plausible. It's tough. I get it. You have to start small and local, but never lose sight of that being a microcosm of the whole. That's how powerful this practice is. For the solution of this problem, Nichiren has recourse to the doctrine of mutual participation. Just as the bliss of enlightenment in a particular individual is imperfect unless this bliss is shared with all fellow beings, bodhisattva, so ills may attack even the holders of the truth, even if the messenger of the Tathagata, so long as there exist any vices in the world in his fellow beings. You okay, Chloe? My little dog's in here with me. And the believers of the Lotus are perhaps more frequently attacked by ills because the devils, the negative amalgams of karma, regarding the true Buddhists as their most formidable adversaries, aim particularly at their lives. That's a little ominous, right? But because our practice gives us the power of Buddha-ness, wouldn't it not make sense? Wouldn't you take a bullet for your child? I'm not saying literally standard, but maybe. Wouldn't you rather deal with the stresses that you watch your child experience than to have your child have to take the full brunt of them? Isn't that a human nature of compassion and protection? Right? That's a bodhisattva. So why wouldn't we not expect, if there are ills and negatives in the environment, in the world, in the universe, in our neighborhood, to seemingly target us? And I say seemingly because oftentimes they're unaware. They're just drawn to us because we have the capacity to shut them down. I've heard it said to be a bodhisattva is to be a courageous human. Such was Nichiren's thought on illness in general. Applied to his own person, it was associated with his mission, his bodhisattva mission, to establish the worldwide correct practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism. Yeah. So long as the true Buddhism was taught only in theory, as was done by Tendai and Dengyo, the onset of the devils was not so violent as when the theory was translated into practice, as it was by Nichiren. Don't just become a scholar and sit on your intellectual understanding of Buddhism. That's all well and good. It's necessary in a way, to some degree at least, to bolster your confidence. But that confidence, you need to internalize that in your very essential being, verb, being. You need to embody your practice completely, physically. That's why we have a mandala, to engage this eye consciousness. And we chant out loud to engage our oral consciousness. In fact, our skin, our taste, our mouth, our tongue, our body, our sensations, all involved. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. There's a rhythm, there's a pronunciation, there's every bit of that brain is being forced into focus to go directly to that mind of Buddha-ness, the Go Homzon. That's bodily. Not just reading a book and go, oh, that Buddhism is cool. No, actual experience the truth of Buddhism. Totally different thing. This was the reason why he encountered so many perils as a result of his aggressive propaganda. They were to be explained in the same way as the illness which attacked him and his followers. In other words, the radical vices, the consequent ills, were aroused to rage by Nichiren's propaganda, especially by his preparations for the establishment of the conversion of the world, of the Buddha-ness throughout humanity. When this latter end should be completely achieved, there would be no more room for the vices to have their evil way. Seeing this, the devils run riot. They're worried. They're being annihilated for the purpose of staying the progress of the cause. Thus, Nichiren saw in the raging plague, and also in his own illness, a sign of the approaching fulfillment of his aim. We must be getting close. For so much shit. Look at the last two. Look at this pandemic. Why would that occur if not because we're making headway? Your practice, my practice, together our practice. The world Sangha, chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, enlivening Buddha-ness. The underlying pus of negativity that has crept into humanity and been there since the universe. The pimples are coming to the surface. They're building up, and we're popping them. We're treating them with medicine. Sorry for those. Whatever. You understand the analogy, right? Does not the growing stubbornness, a quotation, of the resistance show the strength of the subjugating power? Why, then, should not the true Buddhist suffer, not only from illness, but from perils of all sort? Is not Nichiren's life itself a living testimony to this truth? End quote. Not to expect misery, but to not be swayed by it. To understand that this is the process of cleansing. Karma. Thus he wrote in a letter dated the 26th day of the 6th month in 1282, which he meant to be his own sermon on illness and death, corresponding to Buddha's sermon in the book of the Great Decease. Quote, our Lord Buddha revealed the lotus of truth on Vulture Peak during 8 years in the last phase of his earthly life, his samsaric life. Then he left the peak and went northeastward to Kusinagara, where he delivered the last sermon on the Great Decease and manifested death. The Nirvana Sutra is the Great Decease. It's the Nirvana, Parinirvana, Mahaparinirvana Sutra, sorry. This tradition occupied the mind of Nichiren, who had lived a life of 60 years in thoroughgoing conformity to or emulation of Buddha's deeds and work. On the 8th of the 9th month, October 10th, he left his beloved retreat at Minobu, where he lived for more than 8 years. Interesting, 8 years. His intention had been to go to a hot spring, but probably because he was unable to proceed farther, he stopped at Ikegami, near the modern Tokyo, where he was welcomed by Lord Ikegami. The letter he wrote on his arrival at Ikegami to Lord Hakiri in Minobu was his last. The letter, dated the 19th of October, October 21st, is full of delicate sentiment, and in it he again expresses his thanks for the protection extended to him by Lord Hakiri during more than 8 years. He even gives thought to such details as the care of the horse, which, with its harshness, Lord Hakiri had presented him. Harness. Isn't that what I said? I think I said harshness. Harness, sorry. Thenceforth, he lay on a sickbed. During nearly a month, he lectured again on the old Risho and Kokuran, with which he had launched upon his career of conflict and danger. The lectures were unfortunately not recorded, but we can imagine how the Bodhisattva reviewed and reinterpreted the most significant document of his whole life in the light thrown on it by his experiences through more than 20 years. His disciples and followers flocked to his bedside, and the master charged them with the work to be done after his death, much like the Nirvana Sutra was such a statement by Shakyamuni, right? 6 elders were appointed to be the leaders, and they took a vow to perpetuate the legacy of the master, Bodhisattva Nichiren. Besides them, an important appointment was made of a boy, his name Nichizo, which is in that chronological table, which I'll remind you is a link now on the core study page on threefoldlotus.com, of 14, to whom he committed the task of converting the imperial family in Miyako. Kind of a reflection on his own life, don't you think? The motive of the selection is not clear, but whatever it may have been, the boy subsequently proved himself deserving of the master's confidence and became the pioneer of the propaganda in the imperial capital. When all had been finished, Nichiren's last hour approached. Early in the morning of the 13th day of the 10th month, November 14th, 1282, surrounded by his devout followers and reciting with them the stanzas of eternity from the Lotus Sutra, the Bodhisattva passed away. The stanzas are, and you should recognize this, even though this translation changes it a little bit, but this is our Gongyo. Since I attained Buddhahood, eons have passed, the number of which is beyond all measure, hundreds and thousands of millions of billions, and immeasurable. Right? This is the lifespan of the Tathagata. During this time, I have constantly been preaching truths and leading innumerable beings to maturity, taking them on the way of the Buddhas. Thus, innumerable eons have passed, ever in the same way. For the sake of awakening all beings, I manifest the great decease by the great method of tactfulness, and yet in reality I never vanish, but reveal truths by being eternally present. Buddha-ness, not Shakyamuni. I am the father of the world, or it is the father of the world, the one who cures all ills and averts disasters, since I see the mass of men infatuated. I appear to die, although I am really living, because what I'm enacting in my life isn't tied to this body. It's a mental experience, and that experience is availed to all life. I've simply manifested it, and now it's up to you to do the same. I mean, that's Shakyamuni's message. For if they saw me perpetually abiding among them, they might grow slack, become careless, and being attached to the 5 passions, finally fall into the woeful resorts. Right? If you perceive Shakyamuni to be the Buddha, and his teachings are the only reason you feel you can be rescued, then your impetus to establish your own emancipation, which is what Buddhism is really about, gets lost in ritual and rhetoric. So by him dying, he's reminding everyone that Buddhahood is something achievable in being human right now, all of you. You don't need somebody to wring your nose and drag you along. That's nonsense. I am ever watching to see whether all beings are resolved to the way or not. And I preach to them various aspects of truth according to their capacities and for the sake of their emancipation. Not emancipation from life, emancipation from possessions, the warehouse of earthly desires. The shift in perspective in order to have an experience, a living experience, not a collected, constructed experience. Thus, my constant solicitude is, how can all beings be led to the incomparable way and ere long attained Buddhahood? How many times have I read that last part in our discussions on Buddhism? All right. I don't know if I'll read the appendix. It's a little bit, I don't know. I might. I've read it already. Maybe I'll read it again, see if there's any value in reading it here. But the long and short of it is that is this publication from Harvard at the turn of the 20th century, published in 1916, but certainly worked on since the 1800s. An interesting, if nothing else, recount of the historical records of Nichiren's life. Very relatable, very contemporaneous. We can see his exhortation on how we should practice. He is our Bodhisattva, yeah? So, well, I guess this will be a short one today. But that's okay for me because I need to get some more rest. With my deep appreciation, admiration, and pride. Yeah, I'm proud of you guys. Keep your practice strong, right? Watch your health. Be kind to yourself. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Bye for now. Myo.